Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. Happy 2025. I know I've been away for a few months. I fully had good intentions of filming a lot of stuff for you in the fall, and that just did not happen. I started grad school and my priorities just shifted, and so I had to kind of figure out how I was going to integrate YouTube back into that. So that's taken me a while, but I do plan on making videos this year. Just definitely not once a week. It's probably gonna be more like every 2 weeks. And I'm just gonna do my best. I still love YouTube. This is not a form of income for me. This is not something I do full time. This is what I do for fun because I want to connect with a book audience. So it just has not been at the top of the list recently, but I plan on making it more of a priority this year now that I've kind of figured out how much I've bitten off and what I can chew. This video today though is going to be my 2024 wrap up and my 2025 goals. I decided I was just going to do this all in one video because I want to be really intentional with my time here on YouTube and with what videos I film, what videos I put out for you. I want them to be bangers. So I was like, why don't we just do it all in one sitting and just get you the good facts and let you know where I'm going to be at for this year. So I track all of my reading in this journal. I have journaled for a long time. I used to do a lot more intricate bullet journaling, but I kind of turned this more into like my reading stats and then just like reading everything. But I am starting to kind of transform it back into bullet journaling. It ebbs and flows as things change in life. But I did track all the books I read here. I also tracked the number of books. I had the 24 books I wanted to read in 2024. Book of the year, fall TBR. I had all the things. So we're gonna go through a bunch of the things from 2024. So we're just gonna start off with some basic stats. Reading goal for 2024 was 60 books. I did reach that literally like on the last day of the year. It was a little bit of a steep goal for me considering like all the things that I had going on. So we've adjusted a little bit this year, which we'll talk about later. But I did read 60 books. I read 21,483 pages, which I'm really excited about. That's the highest amount of pages I've read since I started tracking my goals for reading. Same thing with the amount of books that I read, both the most that I've consumed. 16 of the 60 books that I read were 5 stars, so I think that's pretty good. I mean, a lot of the rest of them were like 4 and 3-star reads, so I feel like that's pretty good. I read 12 books from the 24 books I wanted to read in 2024 challenge. I am definitely more of a mood reader than a let's stick to my TBR kind of gal, so I'm not really surprised by that, but I am actually more impressed that I did do half of that list. Overall, I found a lot of really great authors this year, a lot of my favorite authors this year, and a lot of authors that I want to read a lot more from, namely Rebecca Ross. I read a lot of Scarlett St. Clair this year. I do want to read the rest of her books. She's not as high of a priority for me right now because I've kind of come out of romantasy a little bit. Still an author that I like. I also found Ann Patchett, which I love listening to her audiobooks. I also found Emily Henry, which I was like so resistant to reading before, and now I really enjoy her books. I also found Ava Reed, which has been a fun one. I've buddy read all of her books with my friend Kaylee, which you've heard me talk about in a previous reading vlogs, and we've had a lot of fun reading her stuff. I also found Kristen Hanna, which was a really fun find. I plan on reading the rest of her books. I read The Women and it was amazing. So just a lot of really great authors this year, a lot of really emotional reads for me. And it's just been a really great year of reading when I look back on it. I'm so happy with everything that I read. I also track in like the format of a book bracket, which you may have seen a few seconds ago, but we're just gonna go through my whole book bracket. I started off the year, my best book of January was Divine Rivals. And then in February, my best book of the month was Ruthless Vows. Between the two, Divine Rivals did win that one. Then in March, I read A Touch of Darkness, and that was my favorite book of that month. And in April, I read In Order to Live. Out of the two, A Touch of Darkness was my favorite. And then in May, I read Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. That was my favorite book of that month. And in June, my favorite book was 7 Days in June. Out of the two, 7 Days in June won. And what's crazy is I also read this book. I didn't finish 7 Days in June until July, but it was so impactful in June that I had to put it as my favorite book. In July, it's still prevailed as my favorite book, so it ended up being my favorite book of July. In August, I read Before I Let Go, which I also found in Kennedy Ryan this year. Also really like her writing. Out of the two though, 7 Days in June did win, so it won 2 different spots in the bracket for the second round, so that's pretty crazy. In September, The Ex-Hex was my favorite book. I just enjoyed that one so much more than I thought I would. In October, my favorite book was Crying in H Mart, and that one ended up winning between September and October. That was such an impactful read for me. And then in November, my favorite book was The Glutton. In December, my favorite book was The Women, and that one won out of the two. So then we have the contenders, which were Divine Rivals, A Touch of Darkness. Out of the two of those, Divine Rivals won. Between 7 Days in June and 7 Days in June, 7 Days in June also won. And then between Crying in H Mart and The Women, this was such a hard one, but Crying in H Mart did win. It was just so good. So our top 3 were Divine Rivals, 7 Days in June, and Crying in H Mart. And out of the 3, Divine Rivals won because I think that book just has a long-lasting impact for me that, like, I will reread this book in the future. I want to get a tattoo for this book. Like, it just really hit me hard. So that was my winning favorite book for the year. And I just love doing this every year. It really makes me compare everything that I read, and it's just a really fun way to figure it out. Overall, I kind of fell in love with the romance category. I did not realize how much I would enjoy romance, and I'm so happy that I do. I feel like it's opened up a whole new world for me. I also found historical fiction. I also have kind of pivoted for 2025 towards the fantasy genre. I feel really confident in going into like higher fantasy genres now, from all of the reading that I did in 2024. So I'm super excited about the prospects of 2025. Moving into 2025 goals, I also wrote everything out in my journal. Like I had mentioned, 60 was a little bit challenging for me last year, and because I'm in grad school, I know that a high goal just is not realistic for me this year. So I cut my goal in half to 35 books in 2025. I think this is just going to be way more realistic, and I also think it's going to allow me the flexibility to kind of explore different kinds of books a little bit more. In 2024, I noticed I was picking up a lot of shorter books or things that I thought would be kind of popcorn reads for me, so I could get to that goal of 60 books because I was struggling a little bit with time. So because of that, I think that like I just didn't read as many things that I thoroughly enjoyed. I feel like that could be kind of mitigated if I just have a smaller reading goal and just really go for books, specifically larger books. I don't really pick up a lot of large books because that just prevents me from getting to my reading goal. So I think that from a time perspective, just from an enjoyment perspective, and also just like in the interest of maybe even reading more pages, I just cut that goal down. So I'm really happy with that. I think it's going to be good for me. I also really want to DNF things if I'm not vibing with them. I got really hard on myself about that last year, and I feel like I can definitely implement that this year, because there's just too many books that I want to get to, and if I'm not vibing with one, it just needs to go. There's obviously a difference if like I am just not in the mindset to read it, but I think I would enjoy it at a different time versus like this is just not anything that I am interested in reading like anytime soon. That's kind of helped me clear out my shelves a little bit and just kind of really curate my lists for going forward in the future, which if you have me on Goodreads, then definitely don't look at my TBR on there because I have like over 1,000 books. Definitely have not curated that list. but that's a whole nother conversation. Another reading goal of mine, and another reason why I cut my goal down, is to read the Bible from a literary perspective and just from a history perspective. It is so important to know this because it is one of the foundational religions of our entire society. A lot of people operate under, you know, everything that is from this book. And I also am a believer, so obviously that caters to my faith goals as well. I do really want to focus on that. School reading also has to come first for me, so you know. And then I really just don't want to be afraid of long books, and I also want to clean out a whole bookshelf. I have one just like average size bookshelf, which you guys have seen before, and I really clean that down a lot, but I want to really curate my collection. And so I would like to clear out an entire shelf of those books, because a lot of them I've had for years and I just continue to buy things and then I don't read what's on there. So I'm just going to really work through getting through a whole shelf. DNF if I don't want to get rid of the book. You know, it's just, we're going to be brutal this year. Which that kind of brings me to another aspect of my reading goal, is that I want 20 of the 35 books to actually be physical books that I own. And I'm really gonna try to stick hard to that, because I do need to clear some things out. So I really would like to stick to that, and I'm gonna be very particular about what I'm buying through this year. I'm trying to stick to only purchasing one book a month. That would only add 12 in if I do that, but right now I feel really satisfied with like the book collection that I have, and the fact that I have Kindle Unlimited. I can get so much stuff, so I feel like I'm going to be able to do that. I already pre-ordered 2 books for this year because I was so excited about them, and so those will count towards that buying goal. So February and August are already knocked out. I can't buy books in those months, so that's where we're at with that. Like I said previously, I am kind of pivoting more towards the fantasy genre, so there's a lot of fantasy reads that I want to get to this year. Specifically, I want to do an entire video reading ACOTAR. I've read the first 2 books and I'm halfway through the 3rd one, but I haven't picked it up in months, and I kind of just want to do a reread because I think when I initially read them, I still had a really negative perspective on the books, because I was like, these are definitely overhyped, like I'm not gonna read them, like, you know, I just was like really, I had this like undeserving hatred towards Sarah J. Maas, and I just don't want to do that. I don't want to put books down before I read them. Like I just had a lot of opinions with no basis in 2024 on books, and I'm just trying to like shatter that, because all I want to do is enjoy them. So if I have that going into it, then I'm not going to enjoy these books. And so I own all of them, and I just want to do a video doing all of them. So I'll probably do that in like March, because I'll have an 8-week break. So I'm planning on just knocking that series out in that 8-week break and doing a really fun video. So look out for that. I think I already said this, but just want to get into more fantasy series. So one that's really on my list is I want to read The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And I also would really like to get into Brandon Sanderson this year. I feel like I would just love those books. I also own The Priory of the Orange Tree, and I definitely want to get to that this year. That one's been one of the ones that's been intimidating to me because of the size, but it's funny because it's only like 500 pages. It just looks so big. I definitely want to get to that one because I feel like I'm in the headspace to like really tackle it this year. Overall though, I don't want to make a really solid list for the year because I end up straying from it anyways, and I just really want to find more of what I like. So I think just focusing on fantasy and just focusing on things that I like. I realized I really like historical fiction too. I want to get into some more like horror reads, and yeah, I'm really excited about 2025 as a reading year. With all that being said, that actually concludes everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. Like I said, very excited for this. I'm so happy that you're here. Last year was kind of the first year that I did any book content, and I enjoyed it so much. I've enjoyed being on Bookstagram so much, and I just love the book community. I've loved it for so long. I have been into it for about like 6 years now. I'm so grateful for everyone watching and for this community. I can't wait to continue to talk about books with you this year. I'm definitely going to do more just general vlogs of me studying and just doing all the things. My content may be a little bit more diverse this year than just straight up bookish things, but I'm here to stay. I'm committed to still making this a priority of mine in 2025, and I can't wait to see what we do together. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.